Everyone wants to live an inspired life, yet so many people search for happiness following the footsteps of peers and taking advice from people who have different values and outcomes to which they're searching. There are people born into wealth, graduated from the best universities in the world, and there are people who have none of that and yet are living extraordinary lives full of fulfillment and reward. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights and strategies that allow you to question the status quo and think freely, so you can design your life and be who you want to be. We get one life. Time is our most valuable asset. I believe that when we're free and able to focus on meaningful work, we become better human beings. This is always free, and I'm your host, Jason Graystone.
Welcome to the leading podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jason on social media and subscribe to the Jason Graystone YouTube channel for weekly videos. Don't forget to also subscribe to the weekly newsletter to receive frequent educational content and action steps to help you design your life so you can be who you want to be. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, guys. I hope you had a nice week so far. Hopefully everything's going swimmingly well for you in the second week of, or going into the third week of 2021. What a year it's been already, eh? If you're listening to this for the first time, welcome. This is the number one podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. And if you're back and you're an avid listener and you've binged all of the sessions or episodes to this one, I praise you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your support. I would love you to give us a little review on iTunes so that we can keep ranking that thing and boosting it to the top of the charts. And if you're listening to this one for the first time and this is the first episode, pause and go back to number one, or listen to this one, then go back to number one and start there. You'll get the most out of it. Anyway, this week, I've been thinking a lot. I've been observing people's behavior. And last year, with the pandemic hitting and all that kind of thing, yes, we saw some challenges. Yes, there was a bit of upheaval. Yes, there was people kind of drastically resetting, reinventing, trying to do new things, adapting and all that. Now it's dragged into 2021. What I'm seeing is a lot more of people being more vocal, people shedding opinions, people arguing a lot more. I'm witnessing in groups where there's kind of conflicting views a lot more. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but people are really coming out of their shell, and that behavioral pattern is coming down to, one, people have just had enough. Two, people just are longing for some kind of interaction, and three, people are going into kind of an animal state where it's like, survival. And this was expected. There's a lot of people struggling right now, and we're witnessing that. But what we're also seeing is times like this is where vulnerable people will get lost. And I feel like there's a lot of people who are lost at the moment. They're kind of in the midpoint, or they don't know what their next move is. And when you're vulnerable like that, and times like this, is where you get led by whoever's got the most confidence. And there's a saying that says, whoever has the most confidence and conviction in what they're saying dictates the rules for society. And what I'm seeing is, particularly with Clubhouse and all these apps that are coming out now, there's people spending hours and hours on there, and there is just tons of opinions, right? All day long, you're getting fed opinions by all these gurus. And what's happening is, because of people being in the vulnerable situation that they're in, they don't know what the next 5 moves to take or next move to take, and they're a bit lost for direction. They're getting warped into these things, right? And they're going down rabbit holes that they shouldn't be going down. So what I wanted to do is I just wanted to rein back in a little bit and just kind of give some clarity and focus and some confidence to you guys who are feeling a bit up in the air, right? And I want to share with you some kind of insights to reset people. So depending on where you are in your wealth creation journey, and depending on really, what your objective is going forward, based on where you are, I'd like to shed some insights so that you can kind of make your mind up on, actually, that's the next logical step for me, or this is the next logical step for me, because I've seen so many people turn to crypto and everything that's happening with Bitcoin and looking for stocks, or kind of, they're in this kind of scarcity mindset, worried that they're going to miss out on the next thing, or, what do I do with my business? Do I put it online? Do I do this? Do I do that? And I just want to say, calm down, right? Let's just listen to what I've got to say in this particular podcast. And hopefully, by the end of this podcast, you should have a little bit more, your eyes opened a little bit, and you should have a little bit more confidence in what the next move you might want to take is. Okay? So I'm going to share those with you. And the first thing is, when you're going onto these apps and you're listening in on these conversations and you're looking up to people, just be wary that the only thing you see, there's something called the iceberg effect, right? And the only thing that you see is, oh, that person's got great habits, that person must be so successful, look at the success, look at the glamour, and they must be really motivated. But what you don't see is all the subsurface stuff, right? Everything below the surface. And everything that I've studied in my life and in my self-development journey and my business journey and my wealth creation journey is a lot of the people are putting on a facade. There's a lot of people who aren't congruent, and there's a lot of people just pretending that they are, they're kind of these, they suffer with extreme narcissism, and they got Dunning-Kruger. They've actually said their pitch so much that they actually believe it themselves. That's the worrying thing. And there's those people, but then there's the really successful people. And the success isn't just there. I can tell you that just over my own studies, there's normally 4 components that lay below the surface that all of those really successful people have in common, that you don't see and sometimes you don't believe. And even if I told you, you probably wouldn't believe it. But I'm going to share them with you because I think it's important. The first one is they have strategies and best practices, okay? And that means that they've got access to proven, efficient, effective methods that are not polarized to one or the other. They're not rabbit holes. They're well thought out strategies that have stood the test of time, and they are implementing those strategies in the back end. The second thing is they've got access to resources. So they normally have access to tools, supporting tools and systems that complement those strategies. The next thing is high performing congruent peers. So they're usually in a close proximity to people who are on the same journey, or they surround themselves with people who have the result that they want, or the next result that they want, and that keeps them going. And then the last thing that they have is accountability and consequences. And what that means is they surround themselves with people, and they have contingency plans and accountability groups from people who are going to support their back and prop them up, and have consequences and forfeits for targets not being met. And every ultra successful person I've met has those 4 things in place. They've all got those 4 things in place, but it's all below the surface. You don't see that on Instagram stories. You don't see that on Facebook. You don't see that on, IGTV or Clubhouse. You just see the success, and it's very difficult to spot the ones that are incongruent to the ones that are congruent. So that's the first point. The second point is your next actions, because I get a lot of people asking me that, or telling me that they want to get into trading, and I ask them if they've got any income, and they say no. And the problem with going straight into trading is the best way to go into trading, let's start with that, is if you are in a position that you've got a lot of time, leveraged time, and some surplus cash, because you're going to have to invest in your education. Learning to trade takes a tremendous amount of time. And usually it's best if you're in a business and you've got that business working as an asset, first of all, so that it does leverage your time and you are free of time, and you've got surplus cash that you can fund an account with, pay for your education with, and have the time to dedicate to take that time pressure off of learning. Because learning to trade is a skill, and you can't learn to play guitar overnight. You're not going to learn to trade overnight. Right? It's just a skill that's a very difficult skill, because not only technically challenging, but psychologically and mentally challenging. So it's best to have a business if you're going to learn to trade, right? and then you use that as a tool to accelerate your wealth, and then you can either replace your income, or you can partially replace it, or you can sell the business eventually, or get out of a job, or whatever it is. The only caveat to that are the people that are like 18, 19, 20 years old, up to, I'd say 20, 25, 26 years old, where they don't have any dependents and they don't have any commitments, and they're just going all in learning to trade, and they've radicalized reduced their lifestyle costs. They live at home with their mum maybe, or their dad, or their guardian, and they've got all the time in the world to dedicate to trading. Great. That's another great situation. But I'm not saying you can't get results if you're in either or position, but most people can't. All right. So it makes sense to have a business. Now, then I see people starting businesses, and because they're not developing the right systems and they don't have their own personal finances in order, they don't have the mindset or the capabilities to scale their business, or charge higher prices, or get repeat business, because what they do is they haven't got their personal finances together. The cash flow is very volatile in the business. They become snappy at clients when they don't pay. They become snappy at people when they're not getting an influx of inquiries. Then they compete on price, which causes the race to the bottom. And that doesn't end very well either, right? They're not focused on time as the objective. So they've developed a business that is exchanging time for money. They've got a service-based business that's very easy to start, but very, 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 very difficult to scale, because it's dependent on them and the hours in the day. And they end up very, very resentful, and it's stuck in a rut. You can't move on, because you can't even get to the place where you can learn to trade, because you can't even get out of your business. You've developed a business that's warping up all your time. So if you are in a business, it pays to think about creating systems, delegations, automations, developing tools, putting your products online, building an online program, an information product, diversify your products so that there's many products distributed. And the more you do that, the more kind of digital products and assets that you have, the more you don't need your time. So if someone now says to me, hey man, could you answer my question? I've got this long ask question, and they send me this big question. Chances are I've done a video on it, or I've got some training on it, that I can just send them a link. And then I can get to the point where I can just, hey, if you've got any questions, email this email address, and that gets picked up by someone else, and then they have the instructions to say, if you get asked this question, send them this video link, send them that video link. And then you can even get bots that do that, right? They can recognize the words that they type in, and they can send them. So that's what you want to be thinking of if you're stuck in that business rut. Second, and then lastly, if you are one of these people that just is in the lower tier, and you're just saving everything you've got, and you're earning an average wage, and you're saving absolutely everything you've got, and you've got no way to grow your money, or put it to work, or invest in a business, or invest in the markets, that's the people that end up at 55 resentful, have a midlife crisis, and go and buy a Ferrari and gel their hair back, and go and pick up a younger model, right? And and that's because all of a sudden they've realized that they've gone down a rabbit hole. They've been told to save ever since the 80s, and they've done that, and they thought they were doing the right thing, and now they are very, very resentful, and now they fear that they're running out of time, and they want to go and get theirs, all the stuff that they missed out on. So depending on the really overarching thing is this: if you are thinking of trading, the first thing you need to focus on is, where's your income, right? If you've got no income, that is where you start. You start with income. If there's no income, there's no outcome. If there's no income, there's no wealth management. So you need money to pour into the thing. Okay, so that starts with going to create a service or a product. Okay, the next thing is, if you've got income, the next move might be, well, I need to scale the income, or I need to save or put my income into the markets passively. The next thing would be, I need to invest some into my business. I need to scale this thing and buy systems and automations, or build out systems that allow me to remove myself from my business. The next thing might be, now I've freed up some time, Now I can create another product or another idea, or maybe I can dedicate this time to learning a skill of picking stocks, or, scaling up my investments to other indexes, or maybe learning to trade. And then that's the process that you follow. But depending on where you are in that journey, you really need to focus on the next step, not 10 steps ahead. So that's really the message. And I want to end this podcast by saying, as I said at the beginning, there's lots of behavioural changes happening at the moment. And we're going into year 2 of this crazy pandemic. And people feel a bit lost and a bit helpless and a bit worried. They're concerned. They're not feeling like they're doing the right thing ever. They seem like they're not doing anything right. And I just want you to know that that is absolutely normal, right? A lot of people are feeling that right now. So my advice is, 1, revisit your purpose and get clear about your vision and mission in life and what you want out of life. Really get detailed about that. Give yourself permission to write it out, what you want to do in life, okay, and what you're here for. Number 2, any feelings or voices in your head that are a bit uneasy for you is a mechanism of trying to get you back on track with your true self and your true values. So it's wise to listen to them, right? If you don't want to trade or buy Bitcoin or have CEO in the title of your Instagram bio, don't. It's as simple as that. Number 3, make sure your short-term goals are chunked down enough. If you've got short-term goals, make sure that you chunk them right down, because sometimes procrastination kicks in when you've got overwhelmed because you haven't broken them down, or there's a specific part or task that you need to do in your goal that subconsciously you're trying to avoid. And because you haven't chunked them down, you can't identify that. But when you identify that, then you can delegate it. So do that. Number 4, don't listen to the news. Switch it off. Life is absolutely fine without it. I don't watch it. My life's fine. It makes no difference to your life watching the news. It will not change your life outcome whatsoever. Number 5, uncertainty is absolutely normal, especially in times like this, but understand that you cannot fear the unknown, okay? Whatever fears that you have are imaginations based on actual events in the past. So pinpoint those, clear those away before you try and bury your head in the sand, and then move on. Number 6, enjoy the process. There's never an end point, okay? It doesn't exist. Accept that and carry on. Number 7, noise. Opinions are like buttholes. Everyone has one and they all smell like poo. Ensure that you're taking advice with a pinch of salt until you've taken the time to create your own synthesis from the thesis and antithesis of people's opinions, right? And then finally, 8, keep showing up every day, do your thing every day, and just understand this. Life is challenging, and learning to swing and dance with life is the great thing about life. So that's the message for this week, guys. I hope you got value from this. If you know someone who needs to hear this, please share this podcast with them. As I say, if this is the first one you've listened to, go back. You're going to get so much from the strategies I've shared in this podcast series. And look out for the Always Free show on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, go and subscribe. It's Jason Graystone. At the moment, we've got about 53,000 followers. We're trying to get that to 100 by the end of 2021. So I really, really appreciate your help in doing that. And until next week, guys, have a great rest of your day and weekend, and I'll see you then.
Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.